we're at about 20 minutes here, so I want to slide into the press conference because I think that's anything else you want to say there.
No, I'm here. I can't wait to hear you
Okay.
say about Pat Kraft.
All right, let's talk about the Pat Kraft. So there were two press conferences today, and I think we can talk about the Terry Smith one a little bit because I think that can kind of put a nice bow on this episode. But I think that we should spend most of our time talking about the Pat Kraft. So what I did and what I might do on the blog is I pulled it off, put it into a Google Doc, and have some annotated notes throughout it. I don't know that I think my overall read on the two press conferences where Terry Smith's press conference was an A plus. It was authentic. It was clean, clear. He was nervous, but you could tell it meant something to him to be there, and you could watch him figure that out in real time. I thought the Pat Kraft press conference was kind of all over the place. And I mean that politely. I understand why. I think I have to imagine that this has not been an easy 48 hours for him. He's made the biggest decision of his career. So I thought that was a part of it that made me feel a little shaky. Let's dive in. I think the opening statement was not great. I'm going to be honest. I don't think the opening statement it just was not what I was expecting, or I think the way it was delivered, also you could tell he was nervous, and then he kind of started to talk loud towards the end to just kind of try to really emphasize the points, and I don't think that was somewhere in there was not the right tone, and I just thought it was a whole lot of and I get to the quote, going back to something that we talked about. He says, "We'll find a coach who can achieve excellence at the highest level, doing it with confidence and conviction. Recruiting will always be a pillar here. We want someone who will attract elite talent, retain players in the NIL era, and make Penn State a destination." Was it not? Am I missing something?
That's why I was more confused after some parts. Not James. Maybe the elite is coded language for we needed better players, and that's not, you weren't elite. But my understanding is James Franklin was doing most of those things. How supposedly he's a better recruiter than an X's and O's guys, right? So yeah, like when he said things like that, I'm like, okay, so we're trading the 2012 model for the 2014 model when we get a new car. Like I don't understand.
I was really confused by that, and that's where I say this was all over the place. The next graph is, this is the modern era of college football. Our next coach needs to be able to maximize elite level resources, attack the transfer portal, and can develop at the highest level. I think all three of those are fascinating little stanzas or clauses on that sentence because, again, he's the one cutting the checks for the elite level resources. And I talked about this on Twitter today. And let me plug my phone in here before it dies. That I talked about this on Twitter today, that Penn State nationally seems to be have Scrooge McDuck diving into the coin vault. And then at Penn State and locally, it's like we're the ASPCA and there's a dog crying and shivering.
It was a great comparison.
Yeah.
Because I think the dissonance of national and local is really stark in this whole thing. But I think especially in the money wise, it's different.
And I was confused because I thought they had that. I thought we had that. I thought the attack the transfer portal thing comes up a lot of times. And it sounds like he was upset that maybe, and I said this over the weekend, that why didn't Penn State go get another linebacker as opposed to 3 wide receivers? Like of the 4 players that they got, core 4 that they got out of the transfer portal, it was 3 wide receivers, 1 linebacker. And I thought that was a shot at that. And then can develop at the highest level. My God, this guy made Troy Apke a draft pick. Saquon Barkley, Abdul Carter, Tyler Warren, Micah Parsons. Like, those are some of the best players in the NFL right now.
There will be people who argue that they didn't develop people, but yes. And as you say this now, what I hear, I hear the athletic director as an owner, and I see him right now in this moment as Jerry Jones, right? Like, well, I'm sorry, I wasn't going to do my questions. I see him as being hands-on, and I don't know if that's the AD's job, right? If you break down those clauses, it's his job to provide the resources and hire the people to do it. It's not his job unless he becomes the general manager or they hire a general manager to do that other stuff. So if that's, yes, those details matter, but I don't know that those are his details. And I believe visually and energy-wise, Kraft's effort was good. Sleeves halfway rolled up, adjusted with him a couple times, taking drinks of water, brought in a separate little podium so he could do it standing as opposed to sitting. So there's some power in standing and doing that delivery, whatever class that came from or however you're supposed to do that. But in terms of specific messages, yes, if you break them down, my understanding, again, through the media and reading and whatever, this is what Penn State was doing, wasn't it? So that's why I was confused at times when this was settling out of, well, wait, I don't understand.
The Jerry Jones thing is diabolical, and I hadn't thought of that, and now I can't unsee it because it feels that way, and it's fascinating, and I think it's because Dave Joyner was a wrestler, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And then he was a doctor. He's a doctor, right? Yep. First thing was his
not a
football
football player. Did he play football?
No, Joyner played football.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Pat Kraft played football like a little bit more reasonably,
Sure.
and I think
you can find pictures of him on the internet in his linebacker uniform.
Correct, that you forgot about. And I don't know. I thought that was weird. And I think this is why I felt like, I'm not saying this, and I'm not saying this, accusing this by any means, but it just felt like this was AI written in the sense that it was kind of bland.
What was his stump speech? We're going to compete for championships. We're going to be elite. It was his stump speech, which resonates,
right?
Which resonates with the fan base. So he was making connections. He was showing passion because, I guess, one of the knocks with James would be not that he's dispassionate, but he's corporate. He's the CEO coach, right? Yes. He's been fired up, but that's not his stock and trade.
And maybe that's part of the problem. We're just like so not used to this style that like, because we've all just, I was thinking about this with Terry Smith, like been so hypercritical of everything that James Franklin has said. And you can't do that anymore. There was some other stuff in here that I thought was weird. This is all in the opening statement. The coach will rebuild the right coach will rebuild the unity and pride that defines this historic program. I'm going to be honest. At this point in this press conference, I did not agree with this because I think this fan base has never been more unified. Like I consider myself very, very pro James Franklin, and he even lost me at the end. I didn't think about it, and we can come back to it a little bit later. And then I thought about some other stuff going on in the background of articles and statements being released recently, and I think maybe it was a swipe dig at that. So we'll take and leave that. And then I just said, like he brought it up again. He said, finally, to our fans, alumni community, we all need each other. We need your support right now. And all of our focus, let me repeat, all of our focus should be around the young men in Lash right now who wear blue and white. We have a lot of football left. They deserve every ounce of our support. I don't know of anyone that was like, that had given up on the players. Everything over the last 15 days has been pointed at James Franklin, right?
Yeah. No, that's why I texted you and a couple other people. I was more confused after the news conference than I was going in. The most clear thing that I had any doubt about, and I will never be able to track, but I guess we trust the guy, right? This is an athletics issue, not an institutional issue in terms of the money, right? So, okay, sure, you're going to foot the bill. Maybe the private equity thing comes in from the Big Ten. Maybe you've got money somewhere else. Maybe it mitigates because James gets a new job or whatever. That was the most clear thing that I heard from that. The rest of this was appropriately so. Stump speech, energized. Somebody's got to be positive. We're going forward. Fight for the fans. but there wasn't any doubt about this stuff. And the more he said it, I guess I questioned, well, was James not doing this? And if he wasn't, then could we just be clear that he wasn't doing it and that's why he doesn't have the job? But you couldn't really do that except the last 3 weeks, things went south.
Right. And it's weird. And I don't know. I don't know. And it's funny you said that because that's the next thing that I have highlighted was, so we in athletics are covering all costs. Just want that to be known. We are absorbing all of the costs associated with this. Found out a little bit earlier tonight that Front Office Sports reported that basically there's a clause in Franklin's contract that says that Penn State will offset whatever he makes next, but he has to find a job basically.
Has to show that he's looking.
Yeah, show that he's looking. It's almost like it's almost
it's like unemployment.
Yeah, I was just saying unemployment. So I thought that was interesting, and I am very anxious, not hearing anything, saying anything, or hearing anything, but I am very anxious about the 31 teams at Penn State, the 30 other teams, I guess I should say, and what this means for them and some of the people. And it's fascinating because I think Penn State both overspends in its athletic department and also underspends in some areas of its athletic department. And I think about that. I think about the fact that this cost is going to eventually trickle back down to fans somehow, some way. Whether it's that new coach's contract or whatever it may be.
You mean the chicken basket's going to be $17.50?
Going to be bad. It's going to be bad, and we will still charge you $17.50 for the t-shirt. Don't worry. Okay.
Best Buy out there.
Let's see what else is here. He said I just felt there was no course of action or no other course. I think he knew that Franklin lost the fans. I think he had to have read that room, and if he wasn't reading that room, that's a big miss. I wrote down that the transfer portal came up a lot. That was one thing that I just thought that was weird. Like, he seems PO'd about the way Franklin handled the transfer portal, but I think between the roster retention that they haven't lost. I mean, the Bo situation was not a good situation for anyone involved.
Well, Bo got paid.
And Bo got paid too. But like, I just think that was a part of it. He said elite again. It just really felt like intentional. And then there was the part where he said, we have weathered far worse than this.
I thought that was his biggest drop.
And I struggled with it immensely. Do you want to go ahead and give your take? Or
you don't need to bring it up. Why, when your fan base has now, after a decade, maybe started getting along with each other?
Really? Realistically, yes.
I mean, it's just starting for some people. Why raise the specter of that in this? This has nothing to do with that. Nothing at all. You could have answered the question the way he did. Well, he asked, that was the follow-up question that prompted the question about not getting along with family members. So no, his biggest, we'll go with that because it prompted a follow-up question, right? No, that should have been, it's an offhand and it's not inaccurate. That was a bigger deal, right?
Correct.
But you don't need to mention it. I mean, it just makes everybody look back at the car crash again. And credit to, I think it was Ali Barubi who followed up and said, hey, you mentioned that, so then you've got a question about it, right? And now some of those stories about it are going to be tenured with that flavor of story. So I thought it was a mistake to bring it up.
And I think that, so two things on that. I want to get to the follow-up question in a second, but I think what I struggled with is the we here. And I've struggled with this a lot, but to James Franklin's credit, and to a point that you made earlier that was a very good one, is he dealt with that in a lot of ways. Like, he weathered with that. I'm not saying that the athletic department just fell into Pat Kraft's lap, but to your point, most of this was over, or it was not over. It's never going to be over, it feels like. But most of this was not as large of an issue, at least publicly, that we know about as this. And he wasn't around when you and I and everybody else were actually weathering this. That's
why it was all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, because he wasn't. And then later, at some point in the news conference, he said, it's not me. All these teams are successful. It's not about me. What sometimes it kind of feels like it is. But he said that, which is probably true, which we've talked about in the past. Like, how much does he bring to it? And I think he does. His energy, his whatever, his support. Too many coaches have told me too many times they believe it matters. But yeah, I just think it was a mistake to bring it up. And I mean, I'm sure it wasn't planned. It just happened as an answer, and it was not an inaccurate answer. It was just the wrong answer at the time.
Correct. Later on, he said people can. And we'll get to the follow-up question here. People can say what they want about James, but James, like, it's a small world. We're all friends. You know who else is his friend? Matt Roll. Wanted to get that joke in. Thank you very much. Okay, then I think Bob Flounders asked the first true authentic moment where I actually was like, you know what, this was a good moment. Was when Bob Flounders asked about Drew Aller, and I thought that was a important moment because this era of Penn State football, which is the era that he has lived in, worked in, tried to help grow, was built around the promise of Drew Aller, and that fell apart literally as he got hurt, and then in the 15 hours or so after. I thought him getting emotional about that was very valid, a real concern, and an actual authentic moment of like, you know what, like we just sat here for 20 minutes and gave him shit, but I'll give him credit on that one. I really will. I thought that was a nice, authentic moment. We haven't had a lot of those around these parts over the last 15 or 12 years. At times, it felt like.
Yeah, because I think people are insulated. Athletics people and the student athletes themselves are insulated. Drew's got one class this semester. It was online, so he's not seeing people. The athletic department, the AD, speaks to donors probably, but you don't see him in the media, once every quarter.
Yeah.
Right. And James is a very formal discussion. So you don't really know people. So they don't get a chance to bare their souls or share some actual opinions. So yeah, it was different in that way because you got his interaction or a taste of his interaction or what he thought of his interaction with someone he does deal with on a pretty much probably a daily basis.
Correct. No, I think that's fair. Any other thoughts there on that one?
No, when you said it, you were ahead of me in streaming it, and I was like, "What's he talking about?" But yeah,
I thought that was
special emotions. Yeah. It was good.
I thought that was good. Not that he's like acting, but I really appreciate him being vulnerable there. I didn't have really much highlighted throughout next because the follow-up question came next. He says, we're a strong force, the most powerful department and university in the country. We stick together through this. It's okay. I don't know about your family, but my family argues all the time. My two brothers, that happens. But we're going to do it with, I hope, with class and dignity and getting one simple thing: the young men in this locker room. You can hate me, you can hate James, but like Drew, rally around them. They deserve it. That's who Penn State is. I thought the question from Allie was it was a really good question because she was paying. It's a minor thing that he said, and she picked up on that and kind of asked a really good question there. But I kind of was thinking about like the answer that he gave. Back to, you're always like, don't answer the question that you're asked, answer the question you want to be asked, or whatever it is, however you say that. And I thought that this was kind of about the like all of the infighting. Actually, was like maybe an allegory toward that. And I think that came up with twice this weekend. That came up with the $500,000 thing, which checked in on that, and it is to what the statement that Penn State put out from the board of trustees just also as well, which is wild, not true. And then checked in on the Adidas deal, them throwing extra money at this to make this happen, also not true. And I think that detraction, trying to swing for that from a certain group of people, not reading the room, and not helping Penn State move forward. If we're going to make this all about the vibes of being a Penn Stater, yeah.
No, I think that's true. I think You know, the $500,000 story clearly came from a subset of the board of trustees, right? That probably isn't in Pat's camp. I don't know about the Adidas story and where that came from, but it was debunked, unreported, whatever, checked on by Ben Jones and some other people. Credit to them for checking that out and apparently getting statements that it wasn't true. I really think the unity thing, in some ways, feels like an external story of it's my way or the highway in terms of what the athletic department and Pat Kraft think, which I know is a storyline internally. Like I've had many people tell me, oh, the new leadership, you're kind of either with them or against them. And many people have told me that from inside the athletic department who probably wouldn't talk to each other, who just kind of offhand, not in bad ways, that they've necessarily been griping. It's just like, oh no, that's how it works. They're in charge. It's those folks and you're with them or not. That feels like some of, because I didn't know there was unity to be rebuilt. I mean, that perked my ears up when he said that too, right? I mean, because at this point, everybody was ready for the coaching change. But even before that, it's still any unity, any lack of unity still dates back to 2011, probably in some ways.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't think it's been a storyline at all.
So why say look at the roots? Why look at that? Go back and look at the accident. Look forward. Look at where you're going. You don't need to talk about what you got through and then keep referencing it, right? You don't need to keep scratching the scab. At some point, you need to go just get better.
Especially when his MO has been to do all of that forward. Field naming rights deal. A logo on the field. Stadium renovation. Like all of these things that are very much forward looking, that don't really involve the past, that are about building a future. And I think in a way, like I think that he didn't envision, he said earlier on that he planned for it, but I don't think he ultimately envisioned that any of this conversations were going to happen. And I think that at least if we go back to that other reality where they lose to Ohio State, but they beat UCLA and Northwestern and Iowa and all of the other teams that they're supposed to beat, you can at least kick it down the road a little bit longer, right? Like it's justifiable. We're okay. That's fine. This is the situation, but here's what Pat Kraft is going to tell you, James, that you have to go do about it. And he's been that way, and I think we've talked about this so much on this podcast. Talked about how it's been shocking, jarring, surprising, and I think that like to go back on that, not to nitpick on this, not to harp on this, because it was one comment out of all of these comments, it just typifies how overly all over the place he was in this press conference.